few more questions. By the way, yesterday's questions, the mid-chapter review, that's your gauge. Did you know how to do them all? Were they easy? That means you're right on track. Did you like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do this. Well, that's a good message to you that, hey, you're not where you should be. Those are review questions for the halfway through the chapter. Okay? So again, if you don't know, ask somebody, ask me, maybe rewatch a lesson. I'm here every day at lunch. Guess who comes in to see me? Nobody. Maybe in a bigger school, some people will. Sarah? No. Just questions. That's it. Just review stuff. Okay, but you will today. Factoring. What do we remember about factoring? Solve. And by the way, we like that as teachers. We like seeing kids at lunchtime. That's the only reason we did this job, right? We're not lazy. Well, some of us are. Right? We don't spend our whole lives in the staff room. Well, some of us do. Okay, what does solve mean again? Good. What's another word for an x-intercept? And which is the one on our calculator to do this? Yeah. So that actually is a pretty easy question if you're allowed this calculator. When I was a boy, I didn't have these expensive gadgets. No, seriously, first year university, one of the kids came to class with one of these. They weren't even banned then. They just came out. It was like $4,000. No, I'm kidding, but and we're just like, holy cow, look, he can cheat. Was the professor aware of this? Did he cheat? I don't know. I didn't know him well enough. He sat at the other end of the classroom, which means he was about 400 students away. Okay, because first year classes, there are thousands of kids in there down at UBC, not TRU. Yeah. Okay, but anyway, zeros. You can do that easily. So I'm not going to put that in my calculator and find the x-intercepts because you guys should know how to do that, right? Should be pretty simple. The name of this chapter is factoring, and I know at least a couple of you are planning on taking Math 11 pre-calculus. This is vitally important. How do I factor this? It says factoring. I want to know what multiplies to -2 times the number out front here. But what's the number out front here? Yeah, it's a 1. So it's just what multiplies to -2, what adds to this number in the middle. What's that number? That's too dark. There we go. Thank you. And what adds to that number? It's always the middle one. Provided you have this in the correct order of descending powers of x. X squared, x1, x0. And we do. What's that number? It's a 1. How did I get a different color now? Okay? Okay, so what are those two numbers that multiply to -2 and add to 1? The only thing that's going to multiply to 2 is 2 times 1. But those don't multiply to -2, so a negative's got to be here or here. Where do I want the negative so it adds to 1? And then you check those numbers. Do those two numbers multiply to -2? Check. Do they add to +1? Check. Those are your two numbers. So because this was a 1 out front, we can do this by inspection. I'm just going to throw down 2 sets of brackets. Grade 10, you didn't see this. That wasn't there. It was just factor. Get the skill so that when you're in grade 11, you can actually solve it. Okay? When is this equal to 0? X times an x is an x squared. That's your only choice. That's the F in FOIL. What else can you multiply to get x squared? That's your only choice. Okay, and then those two numbers you just got, you put them here. +2, that's one of them. -1, that's the other one. And we're done. It's factored. What's the opposite of factoring? Oh my God, no it's not. Anybody else? Multiplying, expanding, same thing. How do I get from this to that? Because you should check. I don't need that one there. FOIL, x times x is x squared. Outside, x times minus 1 is minus x. Inside, 2 times x is 2x. And last, 2 times negative 1 is minus 2. If that is not the same thing, we did something wrong. I said it in grade 10, I'll say it again. You should never make a mistake factoring because you can always check it. You don't need to look at the answer. You just check it. Can I collect these x's? Is it the same? Yeah, it is, right? Same thing. Okay, so I checked it. I know that's the same thing. That's not part of the question. I just want to confirm that. And when you get good, half the kids in Math 11 pre-calc, they just do that in their head. Okay, they can do that in their head after you do about 100 of them. Okay, so why do I want to do that? Well, this is an equation. So if that is 0, what's anything times 0? 0. Yeah. When does this 0? What value of x is going to make this thing in the bracket 0? Negative 2. Okay? And if this thing is 0, then I don't care what that is, because 0 times anything, this equation's going to work. What value of x will make this bracket 0? Solved. That's why we want it to be factored, because you can just look at it and see what the answer is. Okay? This is an equation. When is this equal to 0? I can't tell by putting stuff in here. Okay? But when it's factored, it's easy. So let's check. If x is negative 2, does this thing work? What's negative 2 squared? Let's check negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Plus, what's negative 2? Negative 2. Minus 2. Does it work? Hey, what do you know? That one works. Let's try 1. What's 1 squared? 1. Plus 1, that's 2. What's 2 take away 2? Hey, what do you know? It works. Okay? That's why we want to factor it. Okay, again, that's my x-intercepts, that's my zeros, that's my roots. If I put this in my graphing calculator and find the zeros, I'm going to get the same thing. So you can do that on your test. I'm not going to say you're not allowed to use it, but we should know how to do that. All right, now something different. Because this beast had a different name in grade 10. And you probably asked yourself in grade 10, why are we doing this? This is stupid. We're never going to do this in the real world. And you still might not, but I hope you see now we're kind of building on it in grade 11, right? You know what that means, zeros, roots in the real world? We build a bridge. And where do I want the supports for that bridge? That's an x-intercept. That's a root. That's a 0. Okay? Not to mention the part about the flying banana and when it hits the ground. That's an x-intercept. Or the flare, or the rocket, or the baseball, right? So I just feel like compelled to, that's a pretty picture. I feel compelled to explain the relevance in the real world. Easy burger. Okay, anyone remember the name of this? What's another word for a minus sign? Subtract, or what is the Starts with a D. Between 4 and 2. Yeah, what's the difference? Difference. Misspelled. Diff, whatever. 9. Can I write that like this? Is that the same as 9? How do I word this in mathy stuff? That's 3 squared, or say it backwards. That's a square of 3. This is a difference of squares. And we do a little something different to factor this thing, but it's not harder, it's easier. The reason why this one looks weird is there's no middle term here. It cancels out when we FOIL it. Like if I had this, and I FOILed that, I would have x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 4. Now what happens with my x's? Minus 2x plus 2x, they're gone. I call that a difference of squares, because the middle terms always cancel out. So recognizing that, okay, I just do this. What's the square root of x? Squared, sorry. X. What's the square root of 4? 2. And then I go plus minus and it's factored. Okay, you like having difference of squares. They're easy. What is the square root of 4x squared? What's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of x squared? X. 2x, 2x. What's the square root of 9? 3. Plus minus. It's factored. Okay? So in order for it to be a difference of squares, you must be able to take the square root of this thing. And you must be able to take the square root of that thing. Okay? And we've been working with square root stuff like, since grade 9. Now, this one is a little trickier. When is that thing equal to 0? Uh-oh, I got fractions. Anyone see that? When that thing's equal to 0? Well, if you don't, you just let it be equal to 0 and then you solve it. How do I solve this thing for x? Minus 3, get rid of that. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. Okay? So I have 2x is minus 3. Now how do I get rid of that 2? Yeah, divide it away. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. That's one of the x-intercepts. It's not a pretty integer or whole number, but it's still one of the x-intercepts. If you put that in here, does it work? Is that equal to 0? Negative 6 divided by 2 is what? Here's a better way. What's 2 divided by 2? What's negative 3 and 3? Yeah, it works. Anyone want to guess what the other one is? When is this thing equal to 0? Yeah, positive 3 over 2. There's my two x-intercepts. There's my two roots. And I know there's a percentage of us going, oh, geez, I don't know if I can do that. But on the test, are you allowed your calculator? Okay. You can put that in and solve it. Calculate a 0. Okay. Only you won't get a fraction, you'll get a decimal. Same thing. Okay. You can still get the answers. Ready? One more. Example 3. Solve. But I'm consistently inconsistent. But it is the third example. Oh, God. I remember having someone going, "You didn't title it." And then so to make her happy, I had to title it. Okay, you happy now? Someone else in years past. There's no number there. Oh, God. Okay. 7.5.2.11.6. Okay, you happy now? Right? I don't know. That's not a trinomial. What am I going to look for if there's only two terms there? Is that a difference of squares? You know the square root of 11? I don't either. If you can't take the square root of this term, then it's not a difference of squares. Okay? So it's not like the first example. I can't just do that. Okay? It's not like the second example. I don't know what the square root of 11 is. It's not pretty, whatever it is. It's some irrational number. So now what do I do? Is there a common factor I can take out of both of these two terms? X. Let's do that. Because that, if you remember, should always be your first step in Math 10. Is that the same thing? Okay. This is actually a lot easier than you thought it was. When is that equal to 0? Right? And if that's 0, what's 0 times x? Still 0. 0 times anything is 0. It works. What value of x here is going to make that x a 0? If it's -1, it's a -1, so it's not a 0. Did I use too many words there in that question? What value of x will make x 0? Right? There's your two roots. Because if this thing's 0, does it work? 0 times anything is 0. Yeah, it works. Okay? So that's all you got to do for that guy. But again, plug that in your calculator, boopy-doopy-doo, change the windy, right? Figure it out. Take 15 minutes. And a clever kid will have that done in 10 seconds. No batteries wasted. All right? So 405, 1AB, 2ABC, factor. Okay, do that with factoring. Now if you try and you try and you try and you try and you still can't do it, then resort to the graphing calculator. Let's at least get the answer, okay? But try to factor it. And then 4 and 6, use the graphing calculator, because those ones you can't factor. Nicely. Anything's possible, but even pre-calc 11 kids wouldn't be able to factor those, okay? To find the solution.